Shalom, everybody. Welcome to this week's Journey Through Torah. This week, we start a new book. We're starting the book of Exodus, which in Hebrew is called Shemot, and Shemot means names. The book starts off, and these are the names. What we've learned is that this book is a continuation of what came right before it. It starts with the Vav, and these are the names, right? So this and that's given here shows us that you cannot just start this book by itself. You have to read through what has led up to this point because it is connected. Okay, so what we find is the stories of Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, and then Jacob and his sons going into Mitzrayim, going to Egypt, and then Yosef being risen to a place of prominence within Mitzrayim to be ruler of the world, to help provide a grain that would give them life. And ultimately, we start off here. So now there arises a Pharaoh that doesn't know Joseph. And there's some midrash on there, like, is it like he didn't know or he didn't care? Either way, it counts for the same thing. He acted out to oppress the people of Israel, and he did it out of fear. He did it out of military power, if you will. He did it to show he wanted to rule over them before they decided to do that to them. But again, there's a lot involved in that. But this is a fulfillment of prophecy, is what I'm coming around to. Yahweh told Abraham that your descendants are going to go into a land that's not theirs. They're going to be there for 400 years, and I will deliver them, and because they will be oppressed in that land. I will deliver them, and I will bring them out with a mighty hand. I will crush those that oppress them. This book starts off that way. Okay, it's been that amount of time. From the time the promise was given to Abraham to the time they were delivered, it's about 430 years. So Yahweh wasn't caught off guard. Okay, when we read in chapter 2 where it says that he remembered his covenant with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, it's not like he forgot. Okay, it's that now was the time he was going to act on the prophecies and the things that were given before. The word zakar, to be a memorial or to remember. It doesn't just mean like, oh, I forgot, now I remember. Oh, yeah, that just came to mind. No, it means you act on behalf of something that was given in the past. Okay, something that was given before, you are now taking an action on behalf of it. When we set up a memorial, we're setting up something now present to look at that is because of something that happened prior, something we don't want to forget. So here's the time where Yahweh says, I remember my covenant with him, and now's the time coming that he is going to deliver his people. And then now enter Moshe. So Moshe, not going into his upbringing and everything that happened to get him to this point, because you could do whole teachings on just that. But Pharaoh, on the means that there would be a deliverer to rise up among the people, he had all their children thrown into the river. And if you read through it, it's not just the Hebrew children that he wanted thrown into the river. It was all, including his own people, over a certain age. So again, he sought to cut off the means for a deliverer, but yet Yahweh is Yahweh. He sent Moshe because of people who were obedient to him instead of obedient to Pharaoh. He sent Moshe, and he was put in the river, just in a basket. And then he was in an ark, literally is the word that's given there is ark. He was in an ark on the water, and then he floated to a place where Pharaoh's daughter got him. And if you've read through, you know the story. She named him Moshe because he was drawn out of the water. And then Pharaoh's daughter ended up calling a Hebrew handmaiden, which happened to be Moshe's mother, to nurse him and to raise him. And so he got to know this as well. But then he was raised in Pharaoh's courts. He was raised knowing the ways of Mitzrayim. He was raised with their best teachings and learnings, which would have been steeped in their ways of serving their gods and their deities and how they did things, okay? And Yahweh called Moshe out of that. And he said, he came to a realization that he is Hebrew, and he chose to side with Hebrews. He killed an Egyptian taskmaster, and so he ran because it was discovered. And then 40 years in the wilderness after that, which leads us to the thinking here. He was groomed to be a prince in Mitzrayim, groomed to be a ruler, but yet he had to forget all that, and he had to learn how to be a shepherd. And that's what Yahweh was doing here. He caused him to learn how to be a shepherd and to care for the flock, even a flock that was not his, right? It didn't belong to him, but ultimately he married into the family, and now he is tending this flock, and he did that for 40 years. Then Yahweh calls him aside. And that's something that we need to pause and reflect on, is that when Yahweh called him aside, he stopped and turned aside. He could have kept going. Yahweh got his attention. He looked and he saw on the mountain there was a fire, there was a tree, there was something up there. It was burning, but it wasn't being consumed. It was just this fire, and this fire wasn't going out. It wasn't going away, wasn't getting smaller, wasn't getting bigger. And he's like, I have to go see what this is. I got to go check this out. And we don't know exactly all the reasons for it, if it was just a protection or was it curiosity or whatever it was. He went to go inspect what was happening here. And as he approached, Yahweh called out to him. And this is where we're going to start. Yahweh calls out to him. And so who was it that was there in the bush? Well, we know it was Yahweh, right? Because it says it was Yahweh, but there's more to it that's going on here. Okay. We're going to see the Melech Yahweh, the angel of the Lord. We're going to see Yahweh. We're going to see the word of Yahweh. We're going to see all of these working together. And I submit to you being revealed as one person. Cutting to the end of everything, I believe Yeshua is in this as well, right? So let's get into all this and see where it leads us down this path for today. Starting in Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, we read, Moshe was tending the flock of his father-in-law Yitro, the priest of Midian. So he led the flock to the furthest end of the wilderness, coming to the mountain of God, Horeb. Then the angel of Adonai appeared to him in a flame of fire from within a bush. And so he looked and he saw the bush burning with fire, yet it was not consumed. And Moshe thought, I will go now and see this great sight. Why is this bush not burnt? So what we find here, first off, it was the angel of Yahweh appeared to him. Literally, we see Vayera Melech Yahweh Elav. So Vayera and Yahweh is something that was also used in relationship to Avraham as well, and appeared Yahweh to Avraham. So we see something similar going on here. But understand, it reads here, the Melech Yahweh, the angel of Yahweh, appeared to him. But yet we read in Acts chapter 7, verses 30 to 32, it says, when 40 years had passed, an angel appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai in the flame of a burning bush. When Moshe saw it, he was amazed at the sight. When he came up to look, there came the voice of Adonai, and I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Moses trembled in fear, and he did not dare to look. So what we find here is when he approached, he approached this fire, but it was the angel of Yahweh that was there. And when spoke, it was Adonai. It was Yahweh that was there. So what do we see all these pictures of? Who is this? This is one person. This is Yahweh. This is Yeshua. This is the angel of the Lord. All this coming in together. Yahweh manifests himself in the fire, right? Deuteronomy 33, 13 to 16. On the blessing that was given to Yosef, it said, may his land be blessed by Adonai with heavenly bounty and the dew from the deep lying beneath, and with the bounty of the sun's produce of the month's yield, and with the best from the ancient mountains and the bounty of the everlasting hills, with earth's bounty and its fullness, and, look at this, the favor of the one dwelling in the bush. May it come on Yosef's head and a crown prince among his brothers. So again, the favor of the one dwelling in the bush. The dwelling is Shechan. Shechan, same where we get the word Mishkan or tabernacle from. He tabernacled in the bush. Now we know that he didn't live in the bush, right? But what this is saying is his presence was dwelling there in the bush. Shechan is also where we get the word to dwell. And again, Mishkan was his dwelling place where the sanctuary was, right? So all of this working together. Yahweh appears in the flame of fire. It says Melech Yahweh appeared and it was revealed in the fire. And we read in Deuteronomy 4:24, it says, for Adonai your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. In relationship to the covenant that Yahweh made with Avraham in Genesis 15, verses 17 and 18, as we get to there, we read that Yahweh caused a deep sleep to come on Avraham, and then Yahweh himself made covenant on Avram's behalf, that he was going to fulfill all the promises and everything that he was about to declare toward him. We read, when the sun had set and it became dark, behold, there was a smoking oven and a fiery torch that passed between the pieces. And on that day, Adonai cut a covenant with Avram, saying, I give this land to your seed. So in this covenant, this was the smoking furnace and a flaming torch. Again, the fire and the smoke revealing the presence of Yahweh. I believe it was Yahweh and Yeshua to walk between these pieces. Okay, so again, the revealing of Yahweh, revealing of Yeshua in the presence of fire. And when they came out of Mitzrayim, what were they led by? Exodus 13:21 says they were led by the cloud by day, but also a pillar of fire by night, so that they could travel during the day and the night, and they wouldn't have to worry about anything. The elements of the heat during the day, or the cold in the desert at night, or in the darkness as well. So the fire was Yahweh, but he was leading them in the midst of that. And we see at Mount Sinai in Exodus 19, verse 18, it says, the entire Mount Sinai was in smoke because Adonai had descended on it in fire, and the smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly, which we also see in Exodus 24:17. It says, the appearance of the glory of Adonai was like a consuming fire on the top of the mountain in the sight of Bnei Israel. So again, Yahweh appearing is revealing in fire, even in the tabernacle. In Leviticus 9:23-24, Moshe and Aaron, they went to the tent of meeting, and when they came back out, they blessed the people, and the glory of Adonai appeared to the people. See, his glory appeared. Fire came out from the presence of Adonai and devoured the burnt offerings and the fat on the altar. When all the people saw it, they shouted and fell on their faces. So all of this in revealing, and there's more, but all of this revealing through the Tanakh, how Yahweh is revealed in fire to his people. But we also see in Revelation, in a time coming again, we see he is revealing himself in fire. In Revelation 1:14 says his head and his hair were white like wool, white like snow, and his eyes like the flame of fire. In Revelation 19:12-13, his eyes are like a flame of fire, and his name is called the Word of God. So again, this revealing of the angel of the Lord, the Melech Yahweh, and the Word, all pictures together. Okay, all pictures of one and the same. So it says he goes and he sees this burning bush, right? Well, the word that's used here for bush is sineh. The interesting thing about this word is it just means like to prick something, or a bramble, or it implies thorns. So this was a thorny bush that was seen there, but we're not told specifically what species it's there. As an interesting side note, acacia is a short tree, but it has large thorns as well. And acacia, we know, was used in the Mishkan, building the ark and many of the holy pieces. It was the acacia wood overlaid in gold, right? So it's just one more thing. It could be, maybe not, but it's just more pictures if we look at it that way. And this word sineh, this thorn bush, is also the root for the word Sinai, because Mount Horeb is Sinai, but it's also where the bush was and where the fire and his presence was. So it's the same words that are used there. And so what would the significance be of it being a thorny bush, a thorny tree? You know, the burning bush. Why difference would it matter what kind it was? Because the idea of the bush with the thorns shows us other pictures as well. I mean, with Avraham and Yitzhak at the Akedah, at the binding of Yitzhak, when he went to lay down his son laid down his life, right? And what happened? He was prepared, ready to do sacrifice. And it says the angel of Adonai called out to him. See, again, the messenger of Yahweh, the angel of Yahweh called out to him, and then says, stop. and I know that you've done this and you'll be obedient, you'll be faithful, but you don't have to go through with this. I have provided something for you. Again, though you're willing to do this yourself, I have provided in the stead of you, in place of you. What was it? The ram that was caught in the thorns, that was caught in the thickets. And so again, we see the thorns being a picture of something that was substituted on our behalf, which we also see with Yeshua and the crown of thorns as well. Matthew 27:29 says, the braiding of the crown of thorns, they placed it on his head and put a staff in his right hand, falling on their knees before him. They mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. They mocked him by making a crown of thorns. But it's interesting because thorns are also symbolic of a curse. In Genesis chapter 3, we read, when you keep the ground, when you work the ground, it's going to produce thorns. Through the sweat of your brow and hardship, you're going to have to work the ground now. And so this was the curse that was there. So in Genesis 3, we're seeing thorns as a picture of a curse. And also in Hebrews chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, it speaks of a land that's cursed, that's though it's getting rain, it produces thorns. See, so these are pictures of a curse. And if you want to go to Isaiah 53, you can see also that he bore our sicknesses. He bore our curse for us. And so we see that in Isaiah 53 as well. So back to this word for the bush, sine. You can also get a picture of it in this regard, is like the sin, the nun, and the hey. The letters by themselves can also be a picture of falling and rising again, like the sin. It's looking off, or the sonic rather. It's looking off in the horizon. And different over time, it's been written a couple different ways, but you can see like the revolution of time, the sun setting and coming back up again. So this is falling and rising again. The nun is life, or the quickening of life, also symbolic of a son or an heir. And the hay is revelation, or to behold something. So we have a picture of a son that is falling and rising again, but we behold him, which the idea is resurrection. The death, but coming to life. And even at Sinai, they made a covenant with Yahweh, the old passing away, the new coming on. Old things have passed away, all things becoming new, right? The old life, don't have to worry about it anymore. What exists now is new. And so another picture or symbol of resurrection. And we see in Exodus 3:6, he says, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac and Yaakov. So Moshe hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. But what would this have to do with resurrection? Yeshua says in Matthew 22, verses 31 and 32, concerning the resurrection of the dead, haven't you read what was spoken to you by God, saying, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Yaakov. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. So again, regarding resurrection, he is the God of the living, and he speaks specifically of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And when Yahweh was revealing himself to his people, he said, I am the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, even at the burning bush and at Sinai as well. And then we see this in Exodus 3:13 and 14. Moses says to God, suppose I go to Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel, and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say, what is his name? What should I say to them? God answered, I am who I am. And he said, you are to say to Bnei Israel, I am has sent me to you. And I am that I am, Ihiyeh Asher Ihiyeh. And I hold the belief this is more so a title than a name, if you want to split hairs on it. I don't think it's super important to know about that, but I do believe this is more so an attribute. Okay? Ihiyeh Asher Ihiyeh is I will be that I will be. In some regards, it's really tough to translate, really, but literally he's saying, I exist, I am, and I am there. So when I send you to them, tell them, whatever I tell you to do, I'm in it. All right? I will be there in your deliverance, and I will be there for you in the midst of all this. But again, consider the words of Yeshua. When he was talking, he said, before Abraham was, I am, in John 8:58. So this would have been understood that he was equating himself with Yahweh, because he said, before Abraham was, I am. So wait a minute, how can this be? Because when Yahweh said, he was speaking to Moshe, who came after Abraham. What he's saying is, I am the eternal one. I was there in the very beginning. I was before Abraham, and I existed before all of this. Okay, and now we go to John 1, verses 1 through 3. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and all things were made through him, and apart from him, nothing was made that has come into being. If you go down to verse 14, you say it is this Word that became flesh and dwelt among us. So can you differentiate between Yahweh and his Word? No, he speaks his Word, he is his Word, and he upholds his Word. Often it is emphasized the Memra of Yahweh created the world. Weber says this: generally, according to the Targumist view, the God ruling in history has been the Memra of Yahweh from the very beginning. We find it as creator. So what's the Memra? Well, this is from the Targums. What's a Targum? A Targum is, to oversimplify the statement, it's a translation. Okay? It was written in Aramaic, and it was written in the modern language of the day. It's like we have many different translations today where they've taken the original words and translated them into words that, and the way it poses the sentences and the structure, the syntax, and posed it in ways that we would be likely to understand its context, right? So the Targum is an Aramaic translation of the scriptures. Now, I'm not going to consider a Targum scripture itself, per se, right? But what it does do is that it reveals to us in the translating of that the thought process of how these scriptures were approached. You know, how we translate something reveals our thoughts behind it and how we approach these scriptures, right? Much like the different translations that we pick up today and we read, the same verse can be translated a few different ways. Which one is right? Each of them can be going back to the original text, but then placing different context and emphasis and their life experiences. You can come up with different translations. Some might be okay, some might not. But with all of that, we do get an understanding of how the people approached these scriptures and their understanding of these scriptures in themselves. So when it says the memra is the word that's used there for word. Okay, often in the Hebrew is davar, word, but it's the word that's used there for word. And it's an interesting word, memra, because it's not used consistently the same way, but we do find some very interesting things if you want to take a look at it. Okay, Weber also quotes in the Targum, Isaiah 45:12, I have made the earth through my memra, and I have created mankind upon it through my power. I have raised up the heavens and perfected their power. In Targum Onkelos, Deuteronomy 33:27, it says, through his memra, the world was created. His memra created the world. The word created the world. And in the Targum Isaiah 48:13, it says, through my memra, I have completed the earth and by my power. I have set up the heavens, I called to them, and there they stood all at once. Psalm 147, verse 15 says, he sends the earth his command, his word runs swiftly. And in the Hebrew, when it says he sends earth his command, it reads, Hashaliach imroto eretz. Hashaliach imroto eretz. This word imroto, where it says, where he sends the earth his command, so shaliach is to send, and eretz is the earth. This word that's translated as command is imroto. The Targums use memra for this word imroto. So again, the idea here is that the word that was commanded to us was sent to the earth to act swiftly. At the right time, at the appropriate and appointed time, when it was the right time to do so, the word came to the earth. Does that sound familiar to any of us? So again, moving on with this. And a couple references I have here for you. The Targum of the Memra, or the word of the Lord, is the essential word, the Messiah, whom the Lord sent on earth to perform the great work of redemption and salvation, and who came speedily and tarried not when the time was come. In Clark's commentary on Psalm 147:15, it says, he sends forth his commandment. His substantial word here, personified memra, and appears to be an active agent running everywhere and performing the purpose of his will. So the memra that's used here, it's not just saying a word, it's kind of personified as a person. And so here, memra is understood as the word of Yahweh, but is often used in the Targums for Yahweh himself. See, what happens is when you read in the scripture, Yod, He, Vav, He, they want to profane the name. They don't want to desecrate the name, and they don't want to use his name casually, so they would often say other things like Adonai, right? So that what they would do in this is they would associate this with Yahweh because it is Yahweh, but we're not necessarily calling him by his name to make it casual among us. We want his name to be regarded and kept as holy. Okay. Now, that's been problematic in and of itself as well, because in essence, we've been kept from these things to keep his name holy. We've failed to hear it, really. But we need to act according to his name and to walk in his ways, right? Well, not getting into all of that today, but moving on with the idea of the Word and the angel of the Lord, and the Word and Yahweh, they're one, right? So using the Targums to help show you how this is how the people understood it too. That's why when Yeshua said before Abraham was I am, he was equating himself with Yahweh. And why Yeshua says I and the Father are one. How he can say these things and how the people understood it, right? So Jacob says in Targum Onkelos in Genesis 31:5, the God of my father has been of help to me. But shortly before, in verse 3, Yahweh says to Jacob, my Memra will be of help to you. See that? He says, my word will be of help to you. And then he says, the God of my father has been help to me. He equated the word with Yahweh himself. God promises Israel in Targum Onkelos, Leviticus 26:12 says, I will be your God. But to Jacob in Genesis 28:21, he says, the Memra of Yahweh will be my God. And the same differences we see in the Targum Yerushalmi in Leviticus 26:12 and Genesis 28:21. The same things are mentioned there as well. So in Numbers 22:12, Yahweh is mentioned, but in verse 19, the Memra of Yahweh is what speaks to Balaam. So which is it? Did Yahweh speak to Balaam, or did the word of Yahweh speak to Balaam? Yes. Yes. Yahweh spoke his word was revealed to him, right? Likewise, in the Targum on the prophets, in Isaiah 7:3 and 8:1, Yahweh is used, but in 8:5, Memra of Yahweh speaks to the prophet. So it says Yahweh is used in there, but then it says the word of Yahweh is speaking to the prophet. The Targum Yerushalmi describes Memra in Leviticus 26:12, and in the following verse, Yahweh as Israel's redeemer from Egypt. The same Targum has Yahweh in Deuteronomy 2:7, but says that the Memra of Yahweh blessed Israel in Numbers 23:8. These see how they're being used synonymously, right? Jacob says in Targum Onkelos, Genesis 28:21, the Memra of Yahweh will be my God. And he says Yahweh will be my God in Targum Yerushalmi. In Genesis 31:49, it says, may the Memra of Yahweh watch as a witness between me and you. And then in the Targum Yerushalmi, it says, may Yahweh watch. See, they're used the same thing, the word of Yahweh and Yahweh. In Exodus 12:23, it says, Yahweh will look at the door with the splattered blood. And the Targum Yerushalmi, in Exodus 12:23, it says, the Memra of Yahweh will shield the door. See? Again, all pictures of the same things being expressed in different ways, but speaking of the exact same thing. In Exodus 12:29, Yahweh killed all the firstborn. But then it also says the Memra of Yahweh killed all the firstborn. In Targum Onkelos 13:8, it says, because of what Yahweh has done to me. But then also says, because the Memra of Yahweh has done to me. And then it also says that Yahweh brought Israel out of Egypt, but then also says the Memra of Yahweh performed this. See, so we have, again, just re-emphasizing this to pictures. Yahweh and his word are inseparable, one and the same, right? Exodus 32:35, Yahweh struck the people, but also the Memra of Yahweh destroyed the people. Leviticus 5:11, if anyone acts deceitfully before Yahweh, but then it's also stated if anyone acts deceitfully against the Memra of Yahweh. In Leviticus 1:1, Yahweh spoke with him, speaking of Moshe, but also says the Memra of Yahweh spoke with him. In Leviticus 26:12, it says, I will be for you God, but also says my Memra will be for you God. And in Numbers 10:35, it says, Yahweh revealing himself, may Yahweh dwell again. But also, now the Memra of Yahweh revealing himself, may the Memra of Yahweh return again. Numbers 23:8 says, how am I to curse him whom God has not cursed? And how am I to drive out him whom God has not driven out? But also read as, how am I to curse when the Memra of Yahweh blesses them? And how am I to curse when the Memra of Yahweh multiplies them? Yahweh and his word are one. Yahweh created, and we see the world created, We already addressed this in John chapter 1, right? In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and it was that Word that became flesh and dwelt among us. We saw that before Abraham was, I am. We see that he is the one that is there. In the prophecy in Isaiah, it says he will be called Everlasting Father. How can you be Everlasting Father if you're not? See, so Yahweh and Yeshua, they are one. And the Yahweh spoke, created, the Word created, the Word is Yeshua. Colossians 1, 15 and 17. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, the seen and the unseen, whether thrones or angelic powers or rulers or authorities. All was created through him and for him. He exists before everything, and in him all is held together. In him, everything is held together. In him, everything is ordered to do what it is told to do. It keeps its function. In the Hebrew, the word that's used here, again, the Septuagint shows us Greek words and Hebrew words that are related, right? This word that's used there is, also you see in the King James, it says, by him all things consist. This word that's used there is related to the Hebrew word mitzvah. In other words, in Yeshua, that who created everything, all things are doing according to as they were commanded to do in the beginning of time when everything was created. They are continuing to hold their function that they were commanded to do. He created and is holding it all together. Hebrews 1, verses 1 and 2 says, long ago, many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. Isaiah 44:24, thus says Yahweh, your Redeemer, who formed you from the womb. I am Yahweh, who made all things, who alone stretched out the heavens, who spread out the earth by myself. See, Yahweh says, I created all things, but we also see where the Word created all things. Is that contradictory? No, it is not. 1 Corinthians 8:6 says, for us there is one God, the Father, from whom are all things and for whom we exist, and one Lord, Yeshua, through whom all things and through whom we exist. Because of him, we are here. Because of him, he created all things. Because of that, we are sustained. Because of who he is, you can take your very next breath. And it is him who called Moshe out to be a redeemer, a deliverer for his people. He says, I am going to redeem the people of Israel. And so Moshe, he is sending to his people to gather them together and to go before Pharaoh to say, let my people go, right? And so this is how Yahweh is revealing himself to Moshe. And this is how Moshe was to reveal Yahweh to the people, because he says, who am I to say sent me? To tell them, tell them I am that I am. I will be in all of this that I am telling you. Tell them that I sent you. But there's more to it. Don't just stop there, because there's more in there. Okay, he continues to go on and explain what he's saying. In Exodus 3:15, God also says to Moses, you are to say to Bnei Israel, Adonai, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and the name by which I should be remembered from generation to generation. So we see here, Yahweh Elohei Avotechem, Yahweh, the God of your fathers. Elohei Avraham, the God of Abraham. Elohei Yitzhak, the God of Yitzhak. Ve'Elohei Yaakov, and the God of Yaakov. Shelachin Elechem Zeshmi. He says, so it has sent me to you. Elechem Zeshmi, this is my name, Le'olam, forever. V'zeh Zechri Ledor Dor. And this is how I am to be remembered from generation to generation. And this is how I am to be remembered forever. So why would he bother with all of this? Why wasn't it just sufficient to say, Yeh Asher Yeh? Because again, this is a covenant position and covenant relationship that Yahweh is reaching out to his people. He is telling them, this isn't just some abstract God that you don't know and that doesn't care about you. This is the one who promised Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov that they would have this land, that their descendants would be brought into this. Their descendants would be part of this promise. and you are the descendants. And so the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the God of your fathers, this is who I am. This is how I am to be remembered from generation to generation, essentially forever. And so Yahweh himself, when he reveals himself to Moshe, and he reveals himself as Redeemer, and he reveals himself as Deliverer, says, I am the God of, essentially, Israel. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob's name was also what? Israel. I am the God of Israel. And you are ones I am redeeming and bringing out and coming into the promise that I gave to Abraham. And so now, where does that leave us? Well, Scripture says if you believe that Yeshua is the Messiah, that you are the seed of Abraham and heirs according to the promise. If you believe Yeshua is the Messiah and you serve him, you serve Yahweh, you serve the God of Israel. And if that is a problem for you, then you need to re-examine the Scriptures, your heart, and who it is you really serve. Because Yahweh himself says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He is the God of Israel, which we see a little later in this book as well. He uses that to describe himself there too. The God of Israel is there. So again, we're talking about covenant relationship. We're talking about having all of this in Yahweh, Yeshua, and the Word, and the fire of his presence, all coming together into one. It's a lot here, guys. There really is a lot to consider, and you can go deeper. You can dig a little deeper in all this, but that's all we have for you today. Okay. So I pray this has been challenging to you. I pray this has been encouraging to you, and I pray this has been a blessing. If it has, then please share it. Please help get this out. Whatever avenue that you watch or listen, please help share these teachings to help get them out there. We want to have the word out there. I believe this is helping to change lives, helping to open eyes, and help get it out there, okay? And if this has been a blessing to you, then please consider making a donation to help us continue to make these videos and help keep putting them out there so that we can continue to do so, okay? So with all that, guys, be blessed, be a blessing, and shalom.